hardcore presentation. Welcome to Joy of Business with host Simone Milasas, a dynamic business leader with a difference. Simone has founded and operated many businesses from a young age and has always done business differently. Today, Simone is the worldwide coordinator of Access Consciousness and travels the world presenting Joy of Business programs using access tools and empowering people to know that they can create business in a different way and make money doing it. Simone Milasas, weekly on OMTimes Radio.
Hi everybody, welcome to Joy of Business. You're with Simone Milasas, your host. I'm actually in Dubai at the moment. We're doing a pre-record and I'm in Dubai. I've just done some Joy Business classes here. Losing my voice a little bit, but that's okay. I can still manage to talk. I'm sure I would always still manage to talk. So I'm joined here today. Today's radio show, I'm very excited, is called Benevolent Leadership. And I'm here today with the lovely Steve and Chutisa Bowman. So thank you for joining me, Steve and Chutisa.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, Simone, everyone.
You are two of my favorite people to have on my radio show. I'm always so pleased when you say yes. So now I'm really excited about this show. You guys have just written a book called Benevolent Leadership for a Better World, Unlocking Benevolent Capitalism. So we're going to explore today about being a benevolent leader, and I'm going to ask you some questions from your book, etc., and any information that you have that you'd like to share. One of the things I'd love to, you've actually written in the closing of your book, which I thought was great. You're saying, we can say with confidence that everyone on this earth can make the choice to become a benevolent leader and create different possibilities for the world. So it's something I'd really like to explore today, because it's one of the things I always notice is, you know, when sort of like a concept comes up like this, like benevolent leadership, and it's sort of like everyone does that while everyone else can be that, or you've got to be in power, or you've got to be a CEO, or you've got to be a prime minister, or you've got to be royalty, or you've got to be someone of importance that can actually be a benevolent leader, rather than just like every single person on the planet has the ability and the capacity to be a benevolent leader. And it's like not avoiding that. And I see so many people think, oh, well, the rest of the world will save the planet. All the rest of the world will do something, rather than like, what actions can you take today? So one of the things, the first thing I wanted to ask you about is being a benevolent leader. It's like, what does that mean? Like, what is that all about?
Well, one of the things that we've found, and particularly in those that are starting along the path of benevolent leadership, is that they're willing to actually choose and constantly choose, and from that choosing, they're actually willing to see the effect that that choice might have into the future. Too many people look just at the here and the now without actually being of what the future could be, might be, perhaps could be. And so what we're saying is that everyone has that ability to actually choose, both for now and for the future, and recognising that everything is just a choice. So the whole thing behind benevolent leadership is it's not something you've got to, make yourself do. It doesn't come with your position. It doesn't come whether you're employed in a corporate or whether you're at home or whatever. It comes about from how you choose to see the world. And every one of us can actually have an impact on the world and can help save the world one choice at a time. And that's all it takes, just one choice at a time. What will this create for now and into the future? What are my choices here? What if I chose differently? And if you start being that, then people are going to start looking at you and going, wow, they're different. And that's not a bad way of looking at benevolent leadership.
I'm just aware that the question or the thing that you just read out at the closing of our book, it's very much, most people just think becoming benevolent leader doesn't actually apply to them. They're not actually acknowledge that everything that they do in their life actually affects and influence our future. So by saying that this doesn't apply to me, it means that they just gone into anti-consciousness and anti-conscious behavior that don't care that their choice that they make each day actually be a contribution to create greater possibility in the world or not.
So you're not talking just about in business either, is what I get. It's like each choice you make, from how you are with, you know, dealing with someone when you go into a shop to get a coffee, to being with your family, to being with your kids, to being with your partner. It's like, does that involve all of it? It's not just about business?
It's about life and living, Simone. You know, being a benevolent leader in your own life is the thing that we would like to invite people to be. It's leadership. People tend to think that you only be a leader if you in politics or in business or in something. But they don't think that to lead a life, you really do have to be a benevolent leader, or you really do have to be a leader first and foremost in your life. How else could you have a thriving and happy life if you just have no leader?
So it's about sort of making, I mean, because one of the things my mother used to say to me all the time growing up was, you act like nobody owns you. I was always like, yeah, nobody does own me. So I was always making my own choices. And it's like, it's interesting because I see things are changing, like, on this planet. And it's like, I know that it's like, it's sort of like that place that people had to sort of, you know, conform. I mean, at school, and it's like at college, it's like you're taught to have the answer, not to have the question. And it's like, I see what you guys are talking about in your book, which is absolutely brilliant. You can get it on Amazon. It's Benevolent Leadership for a Better World. Please get it. It's brilliant. So, little advert there. But it's like, I see that it's like, I don't feel like we've ever actually been given permission to choose what we would like to choose, whether anybody else is choosing it or not. It's sort of, it's like that place of like you've been told that you're going against the grain rather than actually being a leader. And it's like, do you see that is changing in our world, or that has been something that's been perpetrated upon us? Or what's your point of view on that?
One of the things that I'm seeing more and more is that people, as they get a little older, realise they don't actually have to have permission to do anything. And as they get a little wiser, which means that they get rid of all of the formed limitations of what they think other people expect from them, which is not a bad way of looking at being wise. As they actually get wiser in those areas, they realise that they can choose without having to be the effect of what other people are expecting from them. We see this in some of the leaders of some of the largest organisations, some of the smallest organisations, including one of the very small organisations, which includes you and you. And so when people are actually able to or willing to realise that they don't have to be at the effect of anything, that they can actually choose for themselves, for those that are around them, and for the planet generally, then that's the whole precept behind benevolent leadership. It is wishing well for others, which includes yourself, and also being willing to understand or be aware of what difference that's going to make both now and also into the future. And this can be with you and your child, it can be with you and your parents, it can be with you and your staff, it can be with you and and then fill in the blanks. So it's recognising that everything is interconnected. Everything has an effect on everything else. And if we understand what that is, don't be afraid of it, but embrace it as a possibility and a way of looking at creating the future. Every choice that we make creates the future. And so let's look at the choices that we're making, and if they're not creating the future that will actually expand for everyone, choose again. And that's the whole basis behind benevolent leadership.
So one of the things you mentioned, Steve, which I think is interesting too, it's sort of like that place when you get to a certain age or something, you sort of get over the point of view that anyone else's point of view matters. And one of the things that I'd love your input on is, I mean, I'm in Dubai, like I said, at the moment, and I just did an interview for a Hoteliers magazine. And one of the things that they keep coming up against is the difference between the older generation who is more inclined to, you know, address people by sir, by their, you know, Mr. Bowman sort of thing. And they have this sort of, I just want to say, gentleman quality about them. And then what's coming along board, who there's sort of like this conflict about who knows more, is the whole millennium crew. All the younger generation who live on technology, live on social media, and that's the way they promote things, that's the way they do everything. And it's sort of like, how do we create that interaction with both of them to create that benevolent leadership in an industry, in a business like that?
It's a very interesting question, that one, because I think too often people buy into the differences between generations. I'm sorry, folks, but people are people. Yeah, they're just people. And if they're a 5-year-old person or a 20-year-old person or a 80-year-old person, they're still people. If they were miserable when they're young, they're going to be miserable when they're old. If they're miserable when they're old, they were probably miserable when they're in their middle age. So I think it's much less to do with generations than it is with how they choose to see the world. We've just taken on we're working with a couple of interns at the moment, and both of them are amazing in terms of the way they're able to look at the world and question. It's not because they're young, it's because they are who they are. So I think if we're willing to get over the notion that there's this artificial divide between generations and just recognise that any time that we feel a bit upset because someone has addressed us in a way that's not appropriate, then that's our fixed point of view that's holding us from creating a future, not someone else's point of view.
So it's like the willingness to actually embrace and receive how everybody functions. I love that, because it's like with a 5-year-old, the way they look at the world, and a 55-year-old, the way they look at the world, is like, it's their point of view, it's their choice. So a benevolent leader is, it doesn't matter how old you are, it doesn't matter if you're working, in the business world, it doesn't matter if you're a family member, it's like you can be that with your brothers, your sisters, everyone. So a benevolent leader embraces all of it.
That's a very good summary, Simone.
I think it's come back to receiving, isn't it? Willing to receive the person in totality. And I mean, if you are the one who are more aware, you can start receiving the other person in totality, and you become entrainment vibration for the other person to choose to be more.
See, one of the things behind a benevolent leader is that if you choose to be a benevolent leader, guess what? That starts to create other benevolent leaders. So it actually is true when it says it all starts with you.
I know, I love that tagline that you have, a better world starts with you. Because it's like, what does that invite people to? It's like, okay, so what are you choosing today? It's like, what choices are you making today that are going to change the world? So we're off to a break, and we're with Steve and Chutisa Bowman on Benevolent Leader. We'll be back really soon with some more yummy, juicy information. Thanks for joining us here on Joy of Business.
What if business could be fun? What if business is the adventure of living? What are you choosing? Where do you do business that makes it easier, more fun, or more joyful for you? We'd love to see where you do business. Connect with us on Instagram at Joy of Business or Twitter at Joy of Business, and share your pictures with hashtags BusinessDoneWhere and Joy of Business. Let's change the world with business. Host your show on IOM-FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM-FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
The Laying On of Hands Healing Radio Show is about treating the whole person, mind, body, and spirit. Join me, Charles Smith, as I share life-balancing measures such as nutrition and spiritual practices to help you take charge of your own health and wellness every Thursday at 7 p.m. on OMTimes Radio.
The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is. The cutting edge of conscious radio, OMTimes Radio, IOM-FM.
Hi everybody, welcome back to Joy of Business. You're here with Simone Milasas and Steve and Chutisa Bowman, talking about benevolent leadership. Hey, first question for this break is benevolence. what is benevolent? What does benevolent mean?
Well, it's interesting. Most people think benevolent means to be charitable, to heal the sick and to succor the poor and whatnot. And that's such a misapplication of the whole notion of benevolence. It comes from a very ancient Greek word that means bene, which means for all, and volent, meaning wishing well. So it means wishing well for everyone. It's actually, you go back to the basics of some of these things, but it's been hijacked over the years by, charitable organisations or people who are putting their perceptions of benevolent in there. Now, we use the word benevolent because that actually matches the energy and raises in people's minds the question of, well, what does benevolent mean? Because what they're talking about is not what I thought benevolent meant. So it starts off conversations rather than finishing them.
And so what about benevolent capitalism? Because capitalism has that, it's like the big dirty C word.
People hate it, which is why we love using it. Because again, you go back to the origins of capitalism, and it came about from ancient times primarily in Europe, where people, in fact, the word capitalism comes from an ancient word for cattle and livestock, and someone who was willing to take livestock, breed them so that they organically grew. Capitalism means organic growth.
Okay, so then benevolent capitalism?
Is wishing well for all and at the same time organically growing possibility.
So it's not being a mean-spirited, selfish person is what most people tend to go to what capitalism is nowadays.
And then they cut off from themselves their awareness of how they can change the world through true capitalism, which is the only system that actually exists in the world that actually enables people to grow organically. And by organic we mean without any necessity for anything other than themselves.
So one of the things that you guys talk about in the book, sort of, it's a running theme throughout the book, is basically it's like people have got to start doing business different. And it's like they have to start doing business different or we're not going to have a planet to live on. And it's like, it's like not doing it from like how much money are we going to get today. It's like not even really about the money. It's like the money sort of starts to show up. And one of the things you refer to is maximizing possibilities versus maximizing profits as well. So can you talk about how you see business in the world, and if we actually are going to have a planet to live on that's going to be, thriving, not just maintaining itself, and it's like, what sort of actions do we need to take, or it's like, what sort of leaders do we need to be here?
The good businesses actually understand that what they do creates a change in people's lives. And if they understand that they actually create change in people's lives, then they can actually start to look at what are those changes that they're creating and create their business around those particular changes. So what we're finding is that businesses aren't bad. There are some bad people out there, but businesses aren't themselves bad. It's how people choose to manipulate. So what we're saying is if you choose to be this benevolent leader, you can still make some darn good surplus, some darn good profit, but also at the same time recognizing how you're creating change in the world. And so many people don't believe they create change in the world. If you're a widget manufacturer, manufacturing widgets, then those widgets change people's lives. If you understand the change that makes in people's lives, then anything that matches the energy of that change is, again, another business you could get into. So if you choose to function from this benevolent leadership space and possibility, then you're actually able to create multiple businesses that create the change that you are already starting to create in people's lives. But most don't want to look at that. Most just want to see a business as a necessary evil to make money so that I can pay the bills and leave a little bit over for the kids.
But when we talk about maximizing possibility, we are not negating or rejecting making money either, because the two things can go hand in hand. If you choose to function for maximizing possibilities, the money will follow.
So is it looking at because what you're talking about, like creating a change in the world with any business, like you're talking about someone creating widgets, and it's like, if you look at, I think most people sort of judge that it's like, if you're going to create a change in the world, it has to be like, you know, I don't know, you're doing something, buying organic food and you're buying farmers market or something. But what about big corporations? Like, say, you know, I mean, I look at the airlines, and at one point, I remember Richard Branson, you know, who owns airlines, owns multiple corporations, and he got awarded the environmentally friendly, you know, businessman of the year, and he was laughing, saying, "This is hysterical. I own these airlines who pollute the planet and do all this stuff, yet I'm still getting this." And what I get is, like, he was actually recognized for the changes he wished to and was looking at incorporating within these corporations, yet it's not just sort of like this fine line of like, well, this is an airline and this is creating this. And it's like, so how do you see like the corporations being able to be that change in the world?
I think a few of them are starting along the path of looking at the possibility that benevolent capitalism can be. There's still way too many of them out there that are looking at fixing the problems that they've already created, or fixing problems that others have created. There's almost none out there at the moment that are actually willing to look at totally different possibilities. And people are starting to talk about it. You hear the notions of conscious capitalism, and you hear some of the notions of, you know, corporate social responsibility. They've all got the background of trying to fix the damage that's being created, rather than what are the totally different possibilities here that we haven't even considered yet. And so people like Richard Branson, for example, he's fantastic, absolutely wonderful at fixing other people's business problems by creating new businesses himself. Conscious benevolent capitalism is past that. It's not just about being mindful, it's not just about being fixing. It is actually looking at what is a totally different system that we can put in place that actually creates this change in the world, does minimal harm to the earth, and creates well-wishing and organic growth for everyone. And people are starting to talk about it now, and we're sort of leading the push in that one. But there's still a lot of baggage around about people thinking they've done their job for society if they fix an already existing problem.
And most people are still doing it within this contextual reality. If you look around, Simone, that it's all about fixing. It's all about, not about what can they be or do different. It's about fixing the damage that has been done. And that's why we would like to invite people to become a benevolent leader instead of just a conscious leader. Where most conscious leader, the term conscious leadership or mindful leadership at the moment, people use a lot, and they seem to be using for people who just trying to fix problems that has been created in the world. What we want to do with benevolent leadership is about beyond just mindful leadership, beyond just trying to fix, but looking at what else is possible, what else can we be, do, have, create, and generate in the world. And if all the leaders coming from that place, they will be creating different possibilities for the world and for everyone concerned.
One of my favourite quotable people is Einstein. And Einstein once said that if you try and solve a problem using the same mindset that you used to create it, you're screwed. So what we're saying is look at things very differently. What are the different ways that we can do things? Look, it's great to fix stuff, not diminishing that, but there's so much more that's possible as well too.
So one of the things that when you're talking about this, what I'd like to have a look at is, do you guys see that there are people in the world that function like this, or is this more of something that you're inviting people to as like a movement, a wave of something that we can create and change the world? It's like, do you want to jump on board and be a part of this? Or is there actually people functioning from this right now?
There are people who are starting to look at this as a possibility. The only one that we're aware of who actually functions from this space is Gary Douglas from Access Consciousness, and that's shown in many different avenues, through the businesses that he creates, through the changes that he's creating in the world, through the changes he makes people around them. So there's many different many different people that are just starting to look at it, but it's more of a movement. One of the things is that people haven't been aware that this is a possibility. I mean, we got an email from a very senior person in the Catholic Church wanting to know more about benevolent capitalism because the Church is looking to find its way in a rapidly changing world. Now, that's pretty exciting.
Right.
So,
yeah, that is really exciting. It's like that the Church is looking at different alternatives.
Yeah, I mean, and that's just an example of many different things where we're saying, just be aware that there's other possibilities out there. Now, what will it exactly look like? No idea. It's just going to be very different to what it is now. And this is one of the great gifts that we can bring to both our life and also our businesses, if we're willing to know that it has to be different. It's got to be different. Exactly how it looks like is not actually relevant yet. Just be aware that it will be different. And from that energy, start to look to see what else that you can create in your business. Very practical stuff that you can do. If I was to do this different, what would that look like? As opposed to, how can I be like everyone else?
But it is very exciting, isn't it, Simone, that what we are doing, like Gary, you and us, looking at creating is create the invitation for people to know that there are different possibilities to be, to do, to create, whether in business or in life, in the world. Like you going around doing the joy of business. That is a platform for people to choose to create the business from different places. So, you know, you're another person that we would see as someone who already inviting people to see the world from different spaces and to create their business and their life from totally different possibilities. So
yeah, I know.
The joy of business is becoming an incubator for benevolent capitalism.
Yeah, I see that too. I just actually got asked to write a regular article for a magazine called Executive Woman, which is for women in the Middle East, which just made me, like, I came to Dubai going, okay, I know I'm coming to Dubai. The classes were not massive, but there was a lot of really potent people in them, and I knew I was meant to come here. And it's like, even for writing that regular article in that magazine that for women in the Middle East, I was like, wow, this is actually creating the change in the world that I know is possible. And it's like, it's just hugely exciting. So
Simone, are you actually writing for some of the most wealthy people?
It's a break.
Yes, I am. Okay, we'll be coming back to join you really soon with Joy Business and Benevolent Leadership.
Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake.
Hi, this is Angela Levesque, host of Entanglement Radio. Join me Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern for inspiring conversations with visionaries in spiritual science and conscious healing. Entanglement Radio, Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern. Transcendent talk for the conscious mind.
Host your show on IOM-FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM-FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community. Simone Milasas would like you to know that business can be fun, which is why she wrote the book, Joy of Business. What if you could have the joy of business rather than the stress and struggle? Most of the time, the only thing stopping you from a thriving business is you. In the Joy of Business book, Simone gives you access consciousness tools and pragmatic ways to get out of your own way and to create the business, life, and living you know is possible and beyond what this reality says is achievable. Business is joy. It's creation. It's generative. It can be the adventure of living. You can purchase your copy of the book through Amazon or Joy of Business website, www.accessjoyofbusiness.com. Connecting you with the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM.
everybody. This show is going way too quick for my liking. Simone Milasas here, joined by Steve and Chutisa Bowman. So first of all, I wanted to let everybody know listening that Chutisa and Steve and Gary Douglas, the founder of Access Consciousness, they actually have a class happening in September. It's in Australia. If you want to come meet us, or you can jump on a plane and come to Melbourne, Australia, in September. But it's also live streamed. So if you don't feel the requirement to go to Australia, you can jump on live streamed. It's from the 12th to the 15th of September. It's 4 days, 4 big full days with Chutisa and Steve and Gary Douglas talking about benevolent capitalism. So, and in the interim, what we also have is we have an evening called Benevolent Capitalism, an entirely new system for business, which is pretty much what we've been talking about. This is an entirely new system for business, and it's also an entirely new system for living. It's like, how are you living your life? So you can jump online to that. It's on the 5th of July, and that's actually live in Copenhagen. It's a 90-minute class. It's $175. Again, you can jump on a plane and come to Copenhagen and join us there. Come introduce yourself. Or you can jump online. Now, if you want to find out where that is, it's at accessconsciousness.com. And if you just search Gary Douglas's classes, it'll come up there. So that's on the 5th of July. Now, what we're also going to do is we're going to offer 5 tickets to that on here. So if you want to email OMTimes at accessjoyofbusiness.com, so that's OMTimes at accessjoyofbusiness.com, we're going to offer 5 tickets for the online version of this class to the listeners out there. So what I'd like you to do is I'd love you to send in what you see you being a benevolent leader is, like how you can be that and what changes that you can make to become a benevolent leader. And it's like we'd love to invite you to become a part of the movement of benevolent leadership. So there's 5 tickets to that. Now you can also go to, just going to get it all out now, you can go to benevolent, is it benevolent leadership or it's benevolentcapitalism.com, isn't it? Steve and Chutisa. Yeah, benevolentcapitalism.com. So, but if you have any questions, you can send them to OMTimes at accessjoyofbusiness.com and we'll send you the details too. And flick you the link to buy the book. Honestly, this book is great. It's like, it's going to be the book that I have by my bed, you know, in my office, in the bathroom, everywhere I can. It's like every time I pick it up, it's like, it's brilliant. It's brilliant stuff in there. And I hardly read any books anymore. I'm always on my computer and working and talking to people. And by the time I get to bed, I fall asleep. But this has really kept me captivated. So I'm very grateful for that. Now, we also have some questions that have come in. So I know that this is a pre-record, but some people knew that I was doing this call beforehand, so they sent in some questions. So the first question here is, in your book, Benevolent Capitalism, you're talking about knowing, not thinking. So what this person's asking is, what's the difference and what can you do to go from thinking to knowing?
Well, knowing is coming from awareness, totally unlocked from cognitive mind. Thinking is purely function from the cognitive mind, from the past reference point, from what you experience from the past and from what you've learned. But knowing is totally from being the question, from not being in the conclusions, from your awareness of what's truly possible. So to follow your knowing, you just follow the energy, really. Follow the energy that what's light is right. And you have to be in the question to be able to follow your knowing. You have to let go of the conclusion about what things are supposed to be or what's supposed to be like. And you have to let go of all of the assumption and projection and all the expectations and all the judgment to be able to function, truly function from your knowing. Because all of the expectation, conclusion, decision and judgment, that's all about thinking.
Thinking, you know, a lot of people have said, oh, you've got to tap into your intuition, which they think is what knowing is about. And then others say, oh, intuition is all about having the experience, and there from that you're able to connect dots because of your experience. Well, what if it was none of that? What if knowing was just knowing? and you knew stuff because the universe knew stuff, therefore you knew stuff. And what if you're able to tap into that? And people are able to do this if they recognise that it's actually possible. So, for everyone who's listening to this, don't buy into that you've got to have a lot of experience in something. That's rubbish. All you've got to do is trust that you actually know stuff.
Like when you're going to make any decision or make any choices, you would ask, would this choice create greater possibilities? When you ask that question, you can't go into your thinking, because when you go into the thinking, you're going into the past reference point. So when you ask, would this choice create greater possibilities for me, for the world, and for everyone concerned, if it feels like yes, some people will get yes. Some people feel really light and expansive. That is your knowing. That is your awareness communicating with you.
And then if I can just say, for those of you who are in business, if you're willing to look at your knowing, then you can start collecting information that actually creates an even greater level of awareness. So with your knowing doesn't mean that you just do things blind. What it does mean is that you actually recognize your knowing, and then you can start collecting information that gives you greater awarenesses. Now, for those in business, that means finance, risk, strategy, all that sort of really cool stuff that I love. But it's collecting the information. But to the very start is to actually understand that you know stuff and to tap into your knowing, and from that is where you then start to collect information, not the other way around.
So you guys are making this sound very easy. And when you say collecting information, Steve, I get it's not, so many people have thought that, I've got to go work it out. And it's like, I'm going to work out the pros and cons. I'm going to work out, what this looks like. Whereas the way, both of you, Steve and Chutisa, are putting this, it's actually incredibly easy to follow your knowing, to follow the energy.
Very true.
Like when I do a lot of share trading and investing. And I used to, at the beginning, I used to, function from thinking. I used to read a lot. I used to study. I used to listen to all the news. I used to do everything possible to acquire information and knowledge and all yada yada yada.
Hoping that would lead to knowing.
And hoping that would give me guidance to make a better decision in trading and investing. And now I'm just ask the question, would this create greater possibility? If I buy this, would it be expensive for now or for the future? And I make my choice from that, and I make a better trader since I've done it that way, from my knowing instead of from my thinking and from my intellect. And you know, Simone, that I love my intellect. So, so to actually switch that off and truly, totally function from the knowing is so expansive.
So you mentioned something here. Now, I know I've got some other questions here, but I wanted to touch on this because you mentioned in the book as well, you talk about awareness. And awareness is one of the most overlooked capacities that we possess. That's what you're talking about with share trading, etc. And it's like, so what do you mean by the awareness is one of the most overlooked capacities that we possess? And you also talk about expanding your zone of awareness. And it's like, how does someone expand their zone of awareness? What does that look like?
Well, awareness is the capacity that we all have. We all of us have awareness. All of us can access that at any time we choose, except we ignore the awareness. How often the awareness knock on the door and we don't receive it. We shut down that awareness. This is a good example that how to use awareness. For me, since, like I said to you, when I do share trading and investing now, I tend to function from awareness. And I would do the share trading in New York Stock Exchange, which means that I will have to be willing to receive the information in the middle of the night when I'm in Australia. So I will go to bed knowing that the universe will have my back if I need to know, and if I need to get up to have a look at what's going on in the stock market in New York. Now, I will go to bed and I can feel the knock on, my head. Wake up! You need to get up. You need to have a look at what's going on. And someday I just say, oh, really? Really? Okay.
And New York goes, yes, get up.
And then the choice I have to make, would it be transit for me to just keep on sleeping a little bit for another 5 minutes? And I know that when the strength and the potency of that awareness, the persistency that it's shaking me to get up and just get out, particularly in the middle of winter in Melbourne.
I know she's had an awareness when I start to get cold because she's not in bed anymore.
Yes, I chose to jump out because I knew that potency and the strength of having to get up is so strong and that saved my life.
Well,
my financial life every time by following my awareness.
You make a lot more money by being willing to be aware and to actually receive that awareness and do what's required from that. Now, she doesn't say, oh, I must be aware, I must be aware. She just is aware. But knowing that it's possible is the first start.
Well, I think also what you mentioned, which is really important, is you have the awareness, but then you also said you have the choice to get up or not. So it's like, exactly. I love that you talk about that because you have an awareness, and then what are you going to choose based on that awareness? You can choose to sleep in or you can choose to get up. I mean, you can use that as an analogy for everything in your life. You can choose to ignore something or you can choose to actually change something. Ask a question.
That's exactly. I love that, Simone, because that analogy is the awareness is knocking on my head. Like, wake up, Chutisa. Now it's time to wake up. And I could just lie there and say, oh, it's so cozy under the doona. It's too cold out there. Do I really have to get up? And that's not a question when you say, do I really have to get up? And no. So I realized that, a few times that I chose not to get up because I thought, oh, really? And then I realized that was not the smart choice. So from that moment on, I realized that when the intensity of awareness arrived, even in the middle of winter in Melbourne, which can be about 2 degrees, I had to get up, find my dressing gown, and go to my office
and slippers
and do some
and
work
follow
at
your awareness.
3 o'clock in the morning.
Make a choice, follow your awareness. This is great. So listen, we're off to another break already. It feels like these breaks are coming up so quickly. So I look forward to coming back in the next segment with Steve and Chutisa Bowman, and we'll have a few more questions from the fans out there. Have you bought into the idea that you have to work hard for your money, that business is hard? I will share some dynamic access consciousness tools to get you out of your own way so you can create a business that actually succeeds. Join me, Simone Milasas, on The Joy of Business at 4 p.m. Mondays Eastern.
As difficult as it is to believe, there are places in Africa where human traffickers sell albino children and their body parts for use in magic rituals. Humanity Healing International is actively working in Uganda to change this paradigm. The Albino Rescue Project finds albino children who are at risk and places them in safe schools and environments where they can learn and grow free from fear. To learn more or to sponsor a child, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is. Are you trying to get from point A to point B and need a little advice? Connect with the counselors at OMTimes Advisors. Whether you're looking for a life coach or a spiritual intuitive, the advisors participating at advisors.omtimes.com were carefully chosen based on their gifts, skills, and professionalism. OMTimes Advisors, connecting you with the best advisors in the business.
Hi, my name is Monica and I'm the host of Co-Creating Now. Give yourself an opportunity to connect with your all-knowing higher self and manifest joy, love, and peace together every Tuesday, 11 a.m. Eastern.
Your conscious connection to a more mindful world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Hi everybody, welcome back to Joy Business. You're with Simone Milasas. Now I just wanted to mention that little prize we have going out there. If you want to send in to OMTimes at accessjoyofbusiness.com, and it's like 200 words or less, and it's like, how do you see you being part of this benevolent leadership movement? Now, you've got to send this in by the 1st of July because the class is actually on the 5th of July, and you can sign up for that at accessconsciousness.com. Just search Gary Douglas for his classes, and you'll see on the 5th of July the class with Gary Douglas and Steve and Chutisa Bowman on Benevolent Capitalism, an entirely new system for business. So I'm sure it's going to be lots of fun. We're only just like touching on some of the stuff that they're going to be talking about. So, and please go to Amazon and search for Benevolent Leadership for a Better World, Unlocking Benevolent Capitalism, and buy that book today. It's brilliant, honestly brilliant. It will change your life, it will change your business. And one of the things I want everyone to realize too is how much have we actually spoken about money? And it's like, I know so many people always think that this is about money. And it's like, what if it wasn't about money? What if money was something that actually just showed up as you being the benevolent leader of your life and your business? So, okay, next question we have here, Steve and Chutisa.
Simone, just before we move on to that, with that issue
you want to
of
comment
money,
on that, don't you?
I certainly. You could feel that from Dubai.
I could feel you. My awareness.
This is where money and awareness actually come together, because if you start to look at it from the point of view that you've actually got to shut off your awareness to not make money, it is really hard work to not make money. You've got to be assiduously focused on not making money to not make money. Why is that? Because with awareness, everything is out there. There are so many different possibilities and avenues for revenue and for money that most people refuse to see. And that's a lot of hard work. And those that work the hardest are those who refuse to know that there's an infinite, abundant universe out there, and they will do everything in their power to prove it. So that's just something that I would leave with your listeners, particularly if they work in organisations that say it's really hard to make money.
Oh, I love that. I would love for you to come back on OMTimes and do a show with me on that, Steve, because I'm sure that's a topic that is hot for everyone as well. It's hard not to make money. I love it. And it's like that. You've been a benevolent leader. That's a completely different point of view. So, hey, next question we've got here from the people who knew that we were doing the pre-record is a lot of everyday business stuff feels like it has to be linear. Hours put in, time put out, expenses and costs down. Can you talk about non-linear business?
The key thing to us with non-linear business is be aware of the linearity. Be aware of what business expects from you. Use it shamelessly and work outside of it. So be aware of what the compliance issues are. Be aware of what the risk issues are, and then work outside of that. So, you've got to be aware of what this reality expects. It expects bookkeeping. It expects accounting. And that's great, but don't buy that as a reality. Use it shamelessly. So there's so many different examples where you can start to look at how can we use this reality to work for us rather than ignoring it totally. So be aware of the linearity. Use it shamelessly, but don't buy it as a reality. And there's all sorts of examples of that where you can say, so how can we, what would it look like if we actually used our bookkeeping to make us money? What would it be like if we used the compliance issue to actually become innovative? So take every linearity and turn the damn thing on its head, use it still, but look to see what are the other possibilities that come out from it. And that's where true innovation starts.
So then it's like, you hear people say it's about the bottom line, and then you hear other people say it's not about the bottom line. And it's like,
what if it was and it wasn't, and it was and it wasn't, and it was and it wasn't? What if we actually were able to watch the bottom line without buying it as a reality, so that we could actually create a bottom line that wasn't a bottom line, so that we could create a new bottom line that no one even knew the bottom of?
And what if the bottom line is about maximizing possibilities? It doesn't always have to be about making profit only. And Gary often talk about changing the word profit to revenue, in one of his
money calls.
Yeah, but you know what? But the funny thing was, though, with that, he's doing I think he just finished it, the class Phenomenons of Business. And we looked at that. We were in New Zealand, and we got off the call, and he said people can't even hear profit. And it's like the amount of people who, like, it's almost like a dirty word, but revenue is something that they're willing to receive, whereas profit is something that they've decided that they're not allowed to receive, or they're not allowed to make a huge, if they make a huge profit, then they're, you know, not being a benevolent leader, etc. And it's like, the interesting thing is, it's like, what if it includes it all?
As bad and wrong and horrible and evil, and so as soon as they judge that, they couldn't even receive the profit that they could make. So they will do everything just to make little profit, so they don't judge themselves as being really bad.
Well, it's interesting. If you look at the word profit and you look at the energy behind profit and the energy behind revenue streams, profit is an answer. Profit is an end result. Profit is something you either get or you don't get. Revenue streams, however, are a stream of consciousness and a stream of, they're continually generating. It's always going to be there. It is never diminishing. It is a revenue stream. So if you start looking at how can we create revenue streams in a way that we haven't even considered, then profit actually doesn't become a business concept anymore. You know, when we look at our businesses, we never look at profit. We always look at revenue streams, and as a result, do exceptionally well. So maybe if people start to change the word profit. Now, I don't mind if they use the word profit as long as they don't buy into it as a reality. So there's many organisations that, you know, will use the word profit, but please don't buy into the collective unconscious about what profit means. Know that it actually means revenue streams.
Yeah, and not the judgment of it. Because if you ever have judgment of anything, it's going to lock you up, and it's going to not allow you to have what we've been talking about before, is the infinite awareness that you as an infinite being do have, and then you have infinite choice. And that's where the fun starts to come in, and I think that's actually where being a benevolent leadership is a better world starts with you. So now I think we've got time for one more question here. I just still want to mention again, in case we end up going to break, is that you can go to benevolentcapitalism.com. Now, Steve and Chutisa have a whole bunch of like Google Hangouts with Gary Douglas on there. There's videos, there's quotes, there's articles, there's everything. There is a wealth of information on that website, benevolentcapitalism.com, and going to Amazon and buying the book, Benevolent Leadership. And don't forget, you can email into OMTimes at accessjoyofbusiness.com, and we're going to give away 5 tickets to the online class on the 5th of July. If you let us know in 200 words or less what becoming a part of the benevolent movement would be for you. So next question we've got here, Steve and Chutisa, is if you're a small business or a one-man show, how can benevolent capitalism still apply?
Well, benevolent capitalism has nothing to do with the size of the organisation, nor in fact whether you're in an organisation. It has everything to do with how you choose to wish well for everyone and create the choices that create organic growth both in your life, the lives of the people around you, and the planet and the world generally. And it doesn't matter whether you're in an organisation or not. It's about how you choose to see the world and how you choose to be with the world that creates that as a possibility.
So basically there's no excuse.
How you choose to be a contribution to make a greater possibility in the world. And you can be that if you just one person business.
Great, I love that. So like what I said, there's no excuse. It's like you can be a benevolent leader no matter what. Even if you are a one-man show, you have a small business, and it's like, or you're, you know, corporations, you're just a mum. It's like whatever it is, you can be that benevolent leader.
True.
So I love one of the quotes that you've got here too. I just want to read this out because I love one of the quotes you have in the book by Gandhi is the difference between what we do and what we are capable of doing would suffice to solve most of the world's problems. And it's like, so I get that that's really just about having a look at what choices you are making every single moment of the day, every single second.
Absolutely.
And not being limited by the judgments of what can or can't be, not being limited by what we've already decided others expect of us or how others expect us to be. And that's where true benevolent leadership comes into it, where you're actually willing to be you no matter what and to create the change that you know is actually required and not having to buy into what the expectations of everyone else around you are. Family, colleagues, bosses, boards, be aware of it, but don't buy it as a reality.
I love that. Okay, so I think we've got time for just one more quick question. And one of the things that you talk about, like, can you talk about what does limitless possibilities look like for a benevolent leader?
Well, one of the things is recognizing that there are so many possibilities out there that are limited by whatever our imagination is. So if we know that there's limitless possibilities, then we just keep looking. It's that sense of curiosity. You know, where true limitless possibilities come in is where we're actually functioning from that innate sense of curiosity about everything. What if? What else? What are the other things? What haven't I looked at that I could look at? What are the other ways that we can do it? Limitless possibilities means what it means, which is limitless, don't try and limit, and possibilities is it's all possible out there. If you start to look at that from a business sense, then you start to actually get into areas that no one else has even thought of at that stage. Knowing it's possible is half the battle with this.
I think, yeah, exactly what Steve said, that to be willing to perceive, to know, to be, and to receive that there's a limitless possibility or infinite possibilities. And first you have to truly know that it is true. If you have a doubt anywhere that's not true, then you're not going to be able to receive it. So first is to totally trust and to know that it is truly possible to have anything you require and desire. If you keep on asking what else is possible, that is the way to allow you to perceive and receive different possibilities.
And it's not about being optimistic or pessimistic. It's about knowing that there are limitless possibilities out there. If one possibility isn't working out, look for another one. And if that's not, look for another one. And if that's not, look for another one. Keep looking. And once you've found one that really works for you, still keep looking.
Great. I love it. Thank you so much. And it's like, and one of the things you do mention within your book is that doubt doesn't actually exist. And it's like, you know what, if you have any form of doubt, ask a question, because it's not true. Being a benevolent leader, you have no doubt. You know where you're heading, and you're going to go there no matter what and no matter what it takes. So I really want to thank you, Steve and Chutisa, for joining me today. As I said, I absolutely love having you guys on this show, and I'd love to have you again. And I look forward to seeing you guys in Copenhagen.